I was curious if you were going, you don't need to touch upon this now, but I was curious if you were going in the course to talk about the hero's journey, because one of the things that you talk about in the book is that the pieces are a little bit more interchangeable than the comic hero's journey versus the hero's journey.
Well, I think both are interchangeable. It's like Stations of the Cross. You're going to go to all the stations. You might not go in that same order.
Okay.
So I think the point I was trying to make is that the idea that you have to have your inciting incident by page 22, that by page 75 you're turning into your third act. I think those are the mistakes.
Right.
Whereby not every story is told in the unfolds in the same fashion. That you can have your breakup happening midway through the story. You can have your inciting incident happen 25 pages on. It really is what's the best way to tell your story, as opposed to it has to be this way. Now, people will tell you if you're breaking in, your first 5 pages have to be kick-ass, not because that's the best way to tell a story, but because that's the way your script is being read by somebody who's going to make a decision whether to pass it along. So there's some reason for starting Groundhog Day, which Danny Rubin did in his first draft, starting Groundhog Day in the middle of the time warp, with the shit hitting the fan and everybody going crazy. But when they started to develop Groundhog Day, they realized that's a terrible way to tell the story, because no one knows what the hell's happening. That you had to tell the story from the beginning, watching him go through the entire first day, so that you could return to all those points later on as the day repeats and repeats and repeats. So the idea that you have to have the dark night of your soul at the 3/4 mark, yeah, most times, but not necessarily. It's really your story, and maybe you take your story and throw it up in the air and have it come down in different pieces, like Pulp Fiction. It's still your story, but you have the choice on how to tell your story. You're storytellers.
Yeah, that's great.
I was talking with a writer friend of mine who's pitching, and he was telling me that, and he's been a professional writer and a showrunner for decades, and he was telling me that somebody told him that the best way to, and this was like last week, the best way to pitch is to front porch it, meaning how do you pitch a story? Well, how would you tell it to a friend if you're sitting on a front porch with a couple of lemonades? So there's no hard and fast rules to any of this, but it all comes down to telling a story. And what is a story? A story is about a character in some unusual situation, or an unusual situation with a relatable character, and then what happens? Every joke is like that. Every sketch is like that. Every sitcom is like that. When you come down to it, and every narrative is like that.